What's happening, good people? It's Tony Wiggins here on Hump Day on a Wednesday with Locked On Jaguars. I'll tell you why Trevor Lawrence has a lot of garbage out that he needs to get rid of from last year, and why Doug Pederson has to take a tough hand to push the young competitive quarterback. We'll discuss that here today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, I'm Tony Wiggins, man, the host of Locked On Jaguars. Thank you for joining me and making Locked On Jaguars your first listen of the day, because it's your team every day. And we're free on all platforms. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Watch me on YouTube as well. I want to talk about something today, something about QB1, Trevor Lawrence, and why I believe this approach that they're going to have to take with him has to be one of toughness and tough love. Uh, Certainly, he's a very, very competitive young man who, for all intents and purposes, I think wants to just be coached up. I really believe that Trevor Lawrence just wants to be coached up, and he wants to be coached tough. Most people do. Most very, very competitive guys want to be coached up. They want to be uh, toughed up and not handled with kid gloves. If it's good enough for Tom Brady in New England, it should be good enough for Trevor Lawrence, right? We as fans looked at him, and people from the outside of the locker room really looked at him as like the savior of a morbid franchise. He was like going to be our hero, going to be the guy that finally lifted this franchise up the way all the other franchise quarterbacks over the years have seemingly lifted up their franchise. And he was also the press secretary last year. And to go along with the fact that he was sort of handled with kid gloves a little bit, even though he was put in a tough situation, and there's a difference, and I'll tell you what it is. It's like he couldn't do any wrong. And he couldn't do any wrong because of the dysfunction that was going on in the organization. Obviously, Urban Meyer, while he was probably being hard on everyone else, I don't think he was very hard on Trevor because, well, the organization needed Trevor to make up for some of the things that Urban was doing improperly or doing wrong. And then I think when it came to the coaches, whether it be the former offensive coordinator or former quarterbacks coach, I think there was so much dysfunction in there that they always had to be positive when they deal with their rookie quarterback. I'll break news to you. Trevor didn't always do everything right and always do everything correctly. It's just that the problems that were permeating through this franchise that were obvious to anyone who was close to it or anyone who talked to people that was close to it, and a lot of things that you had to hold back that you couldn't go on record with until you knew he wasn't going to be the coach anymore. Those things were responsible for so much dysfunction that when you deal with the players and you have a chance to put positivity into everything, that's what you have to do. Everyone was CYA covering their own, you know what, last year because a guy was running around in the organization acting like Captain Ahab. He was a dictator in Urban Meyer. And there wasn't a lot of positivity. There wasn't a lot of results that reinforced that the effort the team and the players were given was any good. And there wasn't any I'm going to say, reason to be optimistic, probably from a player standpoint, that things would get better because they saw firsthand what was going on and we just heard about it. So why would that lead me to think that Doug Pederson should be tough? Because that's what just about every other coach is to a young quarterback. It's no different than in college. I'm sure Dabo Swinney was tough on Trevor Lawrence at times, and I'm sure Trevor appreciated it. I mentioned Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. He was tough on Tom when he was an 18-year veteran. Tom probably at that point didn't appreciate it. But having those demands, and Sean Payton had that with Drew Brees. Aaron Rodgers has gone back and forth with their coach. I'm going to give you an idea right now of why I come to the conclusion that in holding back the toughness aspect or the accountability aspect from your quarterback actually is a hindrance more than it is. You're not helping him. The thought that as an organization, there was talks in the media as an organization that, and this was before Aaron Rodgers ticked everybody off, because I'm going to use an example, but it's just that now, because of some things that happened this past season, folks are going to be like, well, they shouldn't talk to Aaron Rodgers. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. There was talk last year that how dare Matt LaFleur and how dare the Packers not consult Aaron Rodgers about every little thing. Well, now that Aaron Rodgers is right, wrong, or indifferent, has rubbed people the wrong way, the narrative is now, well, this is why you don't consult with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, because he's selfish and because all he thinks about is himself. And so everybody sort of switched up on that. But let me go back to last summer where we were. There were discussions that Aaron Rodgers wasn't getting enough impact or having enough impact or giving enough influence in the decision-making process in Green Bay. Now, you're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, a guy who was won multiple MVPs. He had just come off of an MVP year, and then he won it again this year. In hindsight, though, a guy who has a Super Bowl, a guy who throws less than 10 interceptions damn near every year and over 40 touchdowns damn near every year, that somehow this organization wasn't doing enough consulting with him. And the conversation that was going on here or about Jacksonville is the total opposite. That they needed to consult Trevor Lawrence about everything. That Trevor should be telling the cooks and the chefs what food to prepare in the state. That everything had to run through him, a rookie. And I said, that's too much. Let him play ball. Teach him how to have muscle memory and how to hit an open receiver without the guy actually looking like he's being open. Just let a rookie play ball, man. You don't let anybody. If they're having conversations that a coach on another team and a front office from another team isn't giving one guy room to make plays and make audibles and make calls on the field, you expect, and the guy's a 15, 16-year veteran who's an MVP, who's a Super Bowl champion, but you expect a rookie to be in charge of everything. What it is an overreaction to the fact that an organization that never had a franchise quarterback finally got one, and we needed to make him the king of Duval. We needed to give him a key to the city. We needed to have all the restaurants open up for him and him only, that he needs to make every football decision, that he needs to be consulted with everything, that he needs to be the press secretary, that he needs to come out and in Jackson DeVille's uniform and jump off the lights every day. Like everything had to roll through him, and he was a rookie. Giving him too much can hurt him, and not giving them enough, these young guys, of what they really, really need because you're trying to play nice, can hinder them as well. The only thing you need to give Trevor Lawrence is a playbook and an edict to be the first person in the organization that shows up for work every day and to be the last person that leaves. That's what you need to do, because that's what he's here for. He's here to play quarterback. He ain't here to do all of that other stuff. He's not here to be the voice and the spokesman for everything that goes wrong in that building. He's here to lead this team in that locker room, on the field, and be an organizational leader through his play at quarterback. And that's why in segment 2, I'm going to lay it on you and tell you why that's exactly what Doug Pederson needs to make him do and be tough about it, because that toughness is going to be the only thing that really allows him to advance as a football player, thereby advancing this team to where they need to be. I'll tell you all about it in segment 2 on Locked On Jaguars. Y'all need some eyewear. I know most of y'all don't wear shades for any reason other than to just look cool, right? Well, Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of that price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed, durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' Insane Protection Program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They will send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It is as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays, exclusively for our listeners. Head to shadyrays.com and use the code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for the best deal of the season, 50% off for 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. And you are the superstars of the Locked On Jaguars podcast because you make us your first listen every single day, and we're eternally grateful for all of the interaction and participation that really gets me going with this podcast every single day. And I'm glad to be using my 12 years of covering the team professionally and the other 13 years of me just ingratiate myself with people who know football so I can call and ask them if I'm on point. And I get a lot of criticisms that is very, very constructive from my friends in the industry. We're talking quarterbacks, a position, by the way, I was not good enough to play in high school. Played quarterback for a week on the varsity level, and I was moved to wide receiver. And then I dropped a pass, and I was moved to DB. And then I didn't cover somebody, and I was moved to taking stats. And then I was in the booth with an assistant coach and told him the wrong information that led to an interception, and I was kicked out of the booth and put on the stairs. And that's when I decided to focus on basketball, and the rest is history. However, I'm back here still sitting there talking about football and the quarterback position with Trevor Lawrence. And I said that Doug Pederson has to really, really give Trevor tough love. Did Trevor do anything wrong? Absolutely not. I think he was as classy as he could be. I want Trevor Lawrence to be great. I think all the great quarterbacks, you want to go all the way back to Troy Aikman as the number 1 pick, how you have 2 ways of learning hard lessons. One is to go through a crappy season. And I use Troy as an example because that team went 1-15 in Jimmy Johnson's inaugural season with Dallas. He took a beating. He had competition from a quarterback who was drafted in the supplemental draft, Steve Walsh. All of those things, some of it was manufactured, some of it wasn't. Well, a lot of the things that Trevor went through last year it certainly wasn't constructive. And some of it wasn't manufactured. Some of it was just the stresses of the NFL. But most of it was a clown show. Most of it was a circus. Big-time athletes love being coached hard. I've never met one that didn't like being coached hard. I've never met one that if they ended up great, you didn't hear these stories of them being great and them being intense, whether it's basketball or football or whatever. Trevor's no different. I sure hope that Doug Pederson doesn't coach him the way fans think about him. I don't want him to be coached as if you're just happy to have him here. I want him to get the same tough treatment that Andy Reid probably gives Patrick Mahomes. I want him to get the same tough treatment that Kyle Shanahan gives whoever his quarterback is, whether it be Trey Lance or whether it be Jimmy Garoppolo. I want hard coaching for him as a young player. Now, there's some players, and when they get older, like maybe Matt Stafford, he probably had a relationship with his coach where they didn't have to coach him as hard. But when you're young and you're still learning, unless you can look at tape and tell me that every single thing that happened with Trevor Lawrence last year was somebody else's fault, and I don't think that's what it was. I think he forced some passes. I think he was really trying to lead the team. I think he was doing too much to make up for the fact that other people weren't doing their job, and it hurt him. There are literally games where his play hurt him. It also didn't help that he didn't have receivers who could get open all the time on a consistent basis too. But I want a tough approach, especially early. And you push him. If you push him, his greatness, his competitiveness, all of that stuff is going to respond to hard coaching. You know, recently I've been watching these working dogs, right? And I'm not going to compare a quarterback to a working dog. But we all love dogs. I got a dog, my little dog. I got a 12-year-old Shih Tzu, Lexi, who growls at me when I tell her to move out of my spot so I can lay down. Because we got that kind of relationship, right? But I've been watching these working dogs, whether it be Rottweilers, Presa Canarians, those real big ones that were on Game of Thrones, the other Cane Corsos, Belgian Malinois. Shout out to my man Locked On Bucks. We were talking about Belgian Malinois and Dutch Shepherds at the Senior Bowl. But I watch them. The more disciplined the trainer, the more the dog responds, because those breeds if they can't be lazy. If you have a Belgian Malinois, he'll tear your house up if you don't work him and exercise him. And the more you work him and the more you exercise him, of course, within the framework of professionalism, they respond and they have these big smiles on their face because they want to do the work. So here's the example that I'm actually giving. Here's the connection that I'm giving. I think big time athletes got to be big time athletes because they have big time something that everybody else doesn't, and they can handle more. And they're big time, so they expect you to be big time with them. They demand a lot of themselves, so they expect you to demand and command a lot of them. They want you yoked up the same way that they're yoked up. The late great Kobe Bryant, just think about it. Maniacal in his approach. And he basically said, you want the ball, you need to show up here when I'm here. How come I'm here 2 hours before everybody else, but everybody wants me to pass them the ball? I ain't passing you no ball. You tell you what, have your butt in here working out with me 2 hours every day, and you earn the right for me to pass you the ball. Perfect example. I really do believe that guys like Trevor Lawrence want to be pushed and coached hard and firm. That doesn't mean you have to be a tyrant, but it does mean that you have to, if the rest of the team, if they see you doing that to Trevor, where you don't accept mediocrity, you don't accept mistakes, we're not going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. The old saying is, to whom is given, to what is it? To whom is given, much is required, or whatever. I really firmly believe this, that it'll be very, very contagious if these guys see that you could dress him down. I don't mean just embarrass him, but I mean push him and prod him and demand of him. Then when you go to somebody else, it's always, look, if we can do it to 16, if we're asking him to do it, then you need to have your ass in here to do it too. That's the only way you're going to win a championship. It ain't sunshine and rainbows, everybody sitting around cooking marshmallows. It's being tough. It's being hard. It's occasionally, what's up, partner? It's occasionally you having tough love and having the tough love approach and giving him actually the fertilizer that'll actually make him grow as a quarterback. And then once he gets to that point where he can say what you're thinking before you even get it out of your mouth, but that's when you allow him to do more. I remember Doug Pederson in the Super Bowl. Nick Foles, I know y'all don't like me to mention his name, but I'm going to do it. Nick Foles wanted to run a play, and he was walking over. He knew what Doug was thinking before he said it. Doug said, you want to do it? Let's go with it. Go ahead. That's what you do. That comes from hard work. That comes from trust, and that comes from mutual respect that is built up over a period of time. I'm going to tell you why I think Trevor Lawrence is up to the task, and I think these things will help him this season as he pushes to be the best quarterback he can for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. after I tell you guys about Built Bar. I've been telling y'all about Built Bar, it feels like since I was in high school. It ain't been quite that long, but you guys know what I'm talking about because it is the absolute what? Best protein bar on the market. I could probably do this read because I love him so much and you guys have heard me talk about him so much. I could probably do it and just move my mouth and you could repeat and recite the lines that I'm about to tell you. It is not a regular protein bar. It is not chalky. It is not waxy. And it does not taste like tree bark like some of these things do. It tastes like a candy bar. It tastes like something that's probably not too good for you. But guess what it is? The macros are about half in calories of what a normal candy bar is. But the taste is 100% of what a normal candy bar is. And then they got these puffs. The puffs are protein infused marshmallows with a different texture, but the same deliciousness and the same macros. And you can get them by going to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your next order of Built Bars. You don't take my word for it, man. Just if you get the Built Bars, try the salted caramel first and the banana cream pie or the coconut marshmallow. All of that works in the puffs too. Make sure you go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off of your next order. Riding on through here, man, on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you check out the Locked On NFL YouTube page. Yours truly is on there today with James Rapine. And the Locked On NFL Draft, which is awesome, with Ryan Tracy and my man Eric Crocker, EC, former NFL cornerback. They break it down to you analytically and from a player perspective. You need to follow that podcast, sign in, subscribe, and follow it and find it every single day, Monday through Friday, where you get your podcast. Listen, do I think Trevor Lawrence can and will respond to the hard coaching that I suggest? Absolutely. Now, I'm not saying that you got to be evil and mean. When I mean hard coaching, I'm talking about accountability and I'm talking about pushing him. I'm talking about mentioning his mistakes, saying, no, that's not how we want it done. I want practice stopped. I'm like, no, kid, you can't do it that way. You got to do it like this. This is the only way you do it. And I'm not saying that he wasn't showing up early, but I'm saying I would make sure if I'm the new regime that he does show up early. See, he's going to have more. He should this year have more time on his hand by default because he's not doing all of that other stuff everybody's always trying to say that he needs to be doing, or answering the questions that he needs to be answering, or over talking to the media so the fans would calm down about all the crap they kept seeing last year. He should have a lot more time on his hands. A little less access to media and a little less access to fans means more access to the things that can actually help him perform at a high level. Because look, last year when Trent Dilfer or whoever it was came out and started nitpicking and saying what he saw at Trevor and how Clemson, they didn't do anything. And people got mad at Trent in the pre-draft process and leading up to the draft. And even after he got drafted, they were, you don't know what you're talking about. And see, this is what I'm talking about, that somebody can't even tell the truth about somebody without everybody getting all emotional and being all sensitive. If you really want to be great, you should want that kid to get constructive criticism. Because the second he started playing like he wasn't everything that everybody thought, now we had to reboot and find an excuse. And we had a built-in excuse because of the head coach and his shenanigans, and because the wide receivers couldn't run and couldn't separate. But that still doesn't mean that there were some things that he did not do correctly. And those are the things that if we're going to be great, all of those dudes, Press Taylor, Jim Bob Cooter, Mike McCoy, Doug Pederson, all have experience, either were quarterbacks or have a vast experience with quarterbacks and how to build quarterbacks up. See, when you actually here you go. If I give you a Ferrari, the Ferrari is meant to be driven fast. So you have to be a skilled driver and you have to push it because that's what it wants to do. But you got to be able to handle it. You don't go get a Ferrari and then drive it around like a minivan. What's the point? So who you want driving the Ferrari? Somebody's going to push it and hard charge it, or your grandmother? Everything's okay. Everything's all right, Trevor. There ain't no problem. No. You're going to get to greatness by having a demand that great be great, right? Because it's not just him. We're not worried about his stats and him going to the Pro Bowl. What we're worried about, what we're concerned with, is the fact that he can put this franchise and this city on his shoulders. So I want those shoulders strong, and I want that mind tough. Right? What's more important to you? A good relationship with him and his wife, and to walk in and see him all the time and just be, or do you want them to win a Super Bowl or 2 or 3? Do you want greatness, or you want everybody to just kumbaya and play, do the patty cake game every time you see him somewhere? Because then you're living off of the promise of what he could be instead of the performance that he should be. And that is a problem. Change our mindset. We can think how we want to think, but I hope the coaches realize that they have to be hard on that young quarterback. You got to drive him, because you know what? The kid in Buffalo, he ain't going nowhere. The one in Kansas City, they ain't going nowhere. When you understand that you're sending your guy out there to battle these other dogs, you want to make sure you give them all the toughness and the grittiness that you can, because there in that arena, between those lines, against those gladiators, against Myles Garrett and the rest of these cats, and against TJ Watt and the rest of these cats that are in the AFC, you think they're going to take pity on him? You think they care about how nice he is to people? No. Arm him with what he needs: mental toughness, sound fundamentals. Trent Dilfer was right about a lot of things that he said, but we're just going to blame it on everybody who left, right? No, Trevor has to get better. He has to get better. He has to be better. And I think with a proper coaching staff that's going to demand it and teach him and show him the things that he needs to be taught, and with better players around him, and we need to hold him accountable for that too, with a better system, which I understand. I already have the confidence that Doug knows what he's doing with that. I saw him put 40 up on Belichick in the Super Bowl in the biggest game of the year with a dude who should have been a backup quarterback for his entire career. You damn right. And he did it with Philly and those tough fans. But see, here's the difference. They demand toughness. Those fans in Philly, they don't care anything about all that nice stuff. Look what they did to Carson Wentz. They ran that kid out of there. They ready to run Jalen Hurts out of there. They ran Doug Pederson out of there. In a way, they didn't get real angry at the owner for firing a dude who won their first Super Bowl championship. No, they were honorary as they can be. They were like, man, you look. They don't care. So we need to have that same toughness, and we need to make sure that we demand that our coaches have the same toughness too. Hey, you guys are tough because you put up with me every single day here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast, and we appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk some more draft stuff. And I'll tell you what I'm going to start doing is some of the guys that we hope the Jaguars take, I think I may start talking to, and I want you to look forward to this. I'm going to organize it. I'm going to get it together for next week. I'm going to start talking to some of the Locked On podcast hosts at these colleges to see if we can get some information on these guys. And I'll start trying to plan that for you. So make sure you tune in. Love y'all to death, man. Y'all keep taking care of each other. And we'll see you tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars.